and a little bit of current NBA, as long as maybe a little bit of point guard conversation. If you would like to give back, we're on the Escape Pod on Cash App, so feel free to drop a little cash on the app, and then without further ado, we'll start with Sean. Sean, you've got the first thought.
First thought, man. Not much new with me during the quarantine, man. I got my 12-year-old. Well, she's gonna be 12 this Saturday, so celebrating.
Hey, shout out to Leo.
Happy early birthday.
There you go. If I look too young to have a 12-year-old, it's because I am. No questions will be filled there. But hey,
You're
man,
42 now?
Yeah, 42, almost 42. But hey, I've had a great week, man. Kind of got out of the house a little bit. Enjoyed some company with some friends at a small pool party, a small little gathering. So that was cool. And then later on this week, because it's pretty obvious that everything's going to open up, despite what anybody thinks or believes. It's going to happen. But looking forward to UFC this Saturday. Might throw something on the grill. Maybe have a little small something at my house. Yeah.
Who's the main card on that?
Ooh, we got Gaethje and Ferguson, man. It's gonna be pretty good.
So was that originally supposed to be the Khabib fight? That got adjusted.
Yeah, that was originally supposed to be Khabib Ferguson. Everyone's looking forward to that, but I think this is gonna be a good fight too. I don't see it going past 3 rounds, but it's still
that's number 2 and 3 at the weight, right?
It is, yeah. It's a great card from top to bottom, man. So.
Johnny,
coronavirus. 1984, still going great for me. Life is good. I just signed a deal to do a renovation on a house in Alamo Heights. Moved my dog over with my 4-year-old daughter, and I'm too old to be having 4-year-old daughter, so I'm kind of the opposite of you. But yeah, she's enjoying that. When she was 2.5, she tried to ride the Mastiff, and then my Mastiff ran her over yesterday. So she's got a love-hate relationship with my dog, but overall, pretty good. Oh, one little bit of a sign of recovery.
can you take your mask off so people can hear you? We
What?
get it. It's very
Can anybody
funny.
hear me?
It's very
Jesus,
funny.
Johnny.
Fine. V for
We are-
Vendetta.
We are very impressed with your
God dang it.
levels of intellect.
Custom
Go ahead.
made.
Thank you.
So all my trucks stopped that I was delivering, and then I just got my first delivery to Arizona, and I'm going to Mexico from the 20th to the 24th to Cozumel.
Ooh.
I'm hoping I don't get like stuck over there or something, but I'm just going. I said about my plane. If they're selling a plane ticket, I can go, right? I mean, that's kind of what I thought.
I don't know if that's accurate, but
I don't know if it's accurate either.
Cross
Hopefully I'll get a
check
refund.
anything Johnny says, please. My first take, speaking of cross examinations, is a new law is being passed that there's now forced cross examinations in all sexual assault cases on college campuses. So that'll move those things closer to looking like a court hearing. So that's exciting news for justice in those particular situations. So that's my first thing.
Needed.
Yeah,
Define-
something needed and new.
Define a cross examination.
It's
Like what happens when it? Just real quick.
JB.
One party receives a line of questioning about said
From the
event,
police or the school?
presumably from the
District
school,
attorney? The
uh,
committee.
but then also the other party receives questioning.
So instead of like
they're just trying to
they
bring
say
it
there's
closer to a
rape,
court case.
and then the guy, instead of being kicked out of school, they listen to his side of the story too.
yeah, you could view it that way, or yeah, it could benefit.
I think that's
It
yeah,
could be-
get as
it's
much
better-
information as
it's
possible.
just bringing it closer to being in line with the court of law
Yeah.
that we have.
Either way, it'll benefit
I think
whichever
that's-
party is innocent.
Correct, and that's going
Do we
into
all
place
agree on
August
this
14th.
as a good idea?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Yes.
So great. We're off to a great start. Okay.
agreement.
Everyone now understands the definition of cross examination. So, JB, final first thought.
Damn. Well, quarantine is still awful, but aside from that, I encourage all of our listeners, if this is my little tidbit to intro with, go check out Operation Gideon. Over the last few days, 2 of our fellow Texans have been taken captive in Venezuela for being a part of a failed coup. They're apparently working for one of these mercenary companies called Silver Corp. And yeah, so if you're ever wondering what your tax dollars are doing instead of paying for healthcare or for schools or roads or anything like that, they're most likely funding failed coups in Venezuela with
Were they described as freedom fighters?
they would describe
That's the old term.
they would describe themselves as that. But so I encourage our listeners that are remotely interested in current events, go check out the Silver Corp, Operation Gideon, and what they're up to in Venezuela. And I think that you'll at least it'll at least shine some light on what our foreign policy has been busy doing for like the last 60
I
years
think,
in South America. So.
I think failed coup attempts could be like a whole separate podcast, bro.
No,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's like how much
Yes.
time do you have? Yeah, like we could spend a
Honestly,
lot of time on that. And-
Failed coup attempts would be a hell of a podcast name.
yeah, oh, man, that noted. Well, yeah, and I guess that kind of leads us into our next section, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So Joe Biden 2 weeks ago was accused of sexual assault and harassment by Tara Reid, a former employee of his,
Yeah.
and so this was spanning over 20 years ago, and so this is all the way up to, I believe, 16 years ago. That was that 4-year window that she was working for him, and so we'll let JB have the first word on this, but just a little bit of discussion on this, and how I think this is one of those cases where we talk about where politics should play a backseat to this, to whether you're left or right. There's right and there's wrong.
Yeah, and I think I mean it's not hard to nowadays it's not really hard to gauge somebody's political leanings after a few minutes of a conversation, but I think that's a big part of the problem, is that people view things through a lens, and it's like if we really want to be honest here, my biggest criticism is that the I guess you could call, in America they're called the left, and the rest of the world it's not so left, but the opposition was very, very concerned about hashtag believe women, and they're very concerned about sexual misconduct and sexual assault allegations when it came to Kavanaugh, when it comes to Trump, and it's like do I think that those are valid? Yeah, sure, but suddenly when it's your anointed front runner for the election this year, now all of a sudden it's worthy of doubt.
Believe
And
Biden.
yeah, and it's like well, now we shouldn't believe women because it doesn't fit our narrative. And it's like, if I would like to believe that the average American or the average thinking American would say, hey, if this is the standard, it's true for both. If this is the standard, then we should care about allegations like this, and maybe we shouldn't be supporting people that have credible sexual assault allegations. So it's just, that's what I've noticed, is that there's a clear, and I'm no fan of the current administration, but it's like you can't say that there's been a fair standard as far as believing those things.
Yeah,
So.
I think I can completely agree with that. That I think that's the importance of, we don't treat our politicians like our favorite sports team. We judge them via the acts they do right and the acts they do wrong. That sexual assault, sexual harassment should be serious accusations that should be vetted and properly handled, regardless of if they're wearing blue or red, and that it's something that it is an extremely important issue. That I think we're progressing towards the right thing, but it's something that is scary to see, that just because the bar has been lowered at times in politics in recent years, that's not something that, if it's your candidate, then it should, in my opinion, be someone that's no longer your candidate afterwards, if that accusation is proven accurate.
So he said, she said, but
Yeah.
But
how's it prove?
investigative journalism will now be going at that, and now more documentations will be revealed, and maybe we don't get it, but my hopes is that as fair of an opportunity to reveal factual evidence is given from the powers at bay.
This doesn't change much of my opinion or my plans as far as 2020 goes. And I don't say that like most Democrats would, and I don't consider myself a Democrat by any means, but I had no plans on voting for Biden anyways,
Nope,
no plans. And do what you want. If he's still your guy, that's cool, whatever.
it's not cool.
But unfortunately, and I can't even say that I was surprised by it. Unfortunately, sexual harassment claims have become the new norm if you're running for political office. And so that's a tragedy in itself. I think it's the bigger issue rather than who it is why has it become normal nowadays?
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of in line with y'all. I mean, it's pretty shocking. The media literally around the clock has been just criticizing and grilling Biden like he's the most evil sexual rape. Oh no, that was Brett Kavanaugh. That was completely raked over the fire pit, totally already found guilty, going to us just investigating for something that happened longer with less evidence. I think Biden should be treated exactly the same way Kavanaugh was treated, the exact same amount of things before he became president.
But okay, when you say that though, do you agree that that Kavanaugh was treated as you should have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well, then, then you don't think that Biden should be treated that way.
Yeah, you're wanting more there to be a quid pro quo
no,
than
I
for
think
what's right.
No,
What's right?
I think
what we're trying to
almost
get to, I
what
think,
y'all
on
were
this.
saying with the college thing. I think there should have been some investigations. He had been a judge multiple times. He'd been already vetted by the FBI, and he'd gotten that position, and it had never stopped him before that. And he had almost a spotless record.
Other than not divulging how you have like a high 6-figure level of debt, and then it gets cleared anonymously.
Let's
of all,
not keep this on Kavanaugh. Let's move past
my
this.
big problem. Oh wait, so you don't want things
Let's
that
not-
go against your narrative like the media, because he should be treated the same. But my thing is, I'm not a huge Kavanaugh fan because he was appointed by who originally? The Bush crime family. He was a Bush crime family insider. He absolutely has skeletons in his closet. I just think in this case that the accusations against him were weaker than what they are against Biden, and this is for president. And now Supreme Court is huge.
It's
so
very big.
But I kind of will agree with y'all. If they're gonna do an investigation, it should be the same. If Kavanaugh's the standard, right, then let's do that. To
I don't
Biden.
think Kavanaugh's a standard at any
No.
way, shape,
Well,
or form.
wait,
I
let's-
think
let's
what we're
just-
trying to get to is that sexual assault, no matter who, whether left or right, they should be taken seriously, and they should be properly vetted. And if there is a great chance of it being true, that they
Agreed.
should not be swept under with
Are
you
you
know-
allowed? Here's a question: would you be likely to receive a job in a public school if you had these type of allegations and you were not
Exactly.
able to answer them very directly and immediately? Would you be able to get most jobs if it was common knowledge that you were facing these allegations? I don't think so. But somehow, some way, in America, if you're a Supreme Court justice, if you're a high level politician, and if you're running for president, it's almost at this point, between the two guys that we've got, it's a prerequisite.
Well, and don't forget, our government paid out over $16 million in sexual assault claims and accusations against senators and congressmen. So this is standard operating procedure for these people. I'm no fan of any of the politicians.
and that's what I think we're trying to bring to light is the importance of not seeing this with colors of what side of that I think we all agree on this, whether it's Kavanaugh, Joe Biden, insert name, that these accusations should be treated with respect.
Question: What with Biden, would it be like a week-long special counsel investigation? I mean, he's running for president. It's kind of a weird situation.
Well, for me, the biggest thing was that he just flat out ran from it. That, and that this is kind of one of those things that, like, Joe Biden had a really big platform. He was one of the leaders in this particular field of believing women. And then I felt like, when you're that person, it comes off as really insincere whenever all of a sudden, like, that as soon as it happened, get on a microphone, say, hey, this is something I take very seriously. Please, investigative journalism, do your course. I'm going to give my take on this, but I want the opinion of a woman to be highly respected and valued, and we go from there. That's where I would have liked to have seen this happen.
Instead, it's go
I can agree with
go into hibernation
Correct.
mode. Have your campaign issue some lackluster.
Have fellow Democratic women jump up. Hillary, Warren. Who else
his
defended him?
his
Said,
biggest
believe Biden.
his biggest celebrity backer, infamously, is like Alyssa Milano.
Yeah.
And it's like, ad hominem, aside, it's like she in her bio, like, so she's credited with being like one of the big, like, major celebrity backers of Me Too. And it's like, as soon as this became public, she removed it from her bio on Twitter.
Wow.
And then
I didn't know she ran that much.
it literally took months for her to issue a thing that says, well, this is a credible denial, and that we believe him. And it's like,
Biden.
Hey,
It's
for
like,
me,
yeah, of
man,
course.
Biden's kind of been hibernating for a while now. Like before all these allegations, like even the response to COVID, like, hey, if you want to sit in that seat, no one's asking you to do it, but if you want to sit in that seat,
Well,
where are you at,
that's the thing, Sean. No one was asking him, and he was taken from fifth place into being that guy.
I think Joe Biden's general philosophy and how to get elected is just to be the guy who's not Donald Trump. I think that's his goal, like to go in as under the
Yeah.
radar as possible.
I was friends
Uh,
with Obama.
Yeah, that's right. Joe Biden and Barack Obama. We have many pictures in my colorbound library that I would like to tell
I
you
have
guys.
many leather-bound
Um,
books.
that's right.
My
So,
apartment smells of rich mahogany.
let's parlay that. Let's keep it on Joe Biden a little bit. Let's talk about some interesting VP candidates that Sean. I know you're a gigantic Elizabeth Warren fan. I know that you've spent many of your hard-earned teacher salary to her campaign, and you just believe she's a true patriot and progressive. But who do you think would make sense? And what are your general thoughts, assuming for fact that what I just said is true?
It's so terrible to see that Elizabeth Warren had to drop out here.
Yeah, so sad.
But I've said it one of the previous episodes, man. Like, I don't see a path to Biden actually winning unless he has Obama on his ticket, and by Obama I do mean Michelle Obama. I don't see anybody else. I've said that it's very possible that he gets the governor of Michigan, Whitmer. She's now gotten herself in a real hot situation.
Yeah.
Probably taking on the toughest stance on COVID-19. And lockdowns, mandatory lockdowns interstate. So it's going to be an interesting choice right there. But I don't see a path. There's not any single person that I see that he could pick up that's going to show up at the polls come 2020.
Yeah. So polls. I mean, I think this is a pretty simple thing that Elizabeth Warren is showing the highest return on investment. I think that's mostly because she has the best name recognition. So that's I think more preliminary. But JB, what are some of your thoughts on running mates? And if you were, I know covering up your disdain for Joe Biden, if you had to pick, what would be the most savvy pick on his part? Let me throw it to you this way instead. Who would you want, like a Bernie Sanders, to pick as a running mate? Maybe that'll make you a little less queasy.
Well, it won't be Elizabeth Warren.
Got that.
But yeah, I mean, as far as where I think Bernie's coming from, it would be a female, and it would be probably a female minority candidate, one woman of color. I don't like her, and I don't. The talks kind of died down. I always thought it would be Kamala Harris. Again, not a fan, but I thought that would have been the stereotypical ticket from that end. But whatever his pick is, I think it's going to reflect. They've talked about Nina Turner. I don't think would do it. Stacey Adams is another one. It's going to be something. It's going to be a weak
Adams
attempt.
has gotten a lot of love.
Yeah, it's going to be a weak attempt, but it's going to be an attempt to get a lot of the progressives that they've lost. And I don't think it'll be enough to win, but that's what I'm thinking. It'll be a female woman a woman of color, and
you think he'd almost have to go progressive. He's already limping in with that vote.
Yeah,
I think you almost have to try and give some olive branch.
But it's like, honestly, if you're talking about winning, to me, it's so much less important that he goes, a specific demographic, and it's actually more important that he concedes some things in the platform. So it's like right now he won't do it, but if he started to get on the Medicare for All bandwagon, or at least a roadmap to that, if he adopted actually some of the real progressive issues, it's like that's a way to get people to come vote for you, not with some name that's not going to have any influence.
Well, Bernie Sanders had talked about that in a recent interview a couple weeks ago. That's definitely the thing I had heard from some of the listening to some of Joe Biden's people, like that giving information out is they're taking this very seriously in terms of like what they actually stand for, because he's already said that if he gets this, he'd be a one-term president. So whoever this VP is would most likely have a leg up on the next Democratic.
Well, and ask yourself, it's like that's an increased level of importance. But it's just like as far as like what people vote on and what people support. It's like imagine this. It's like how does even though he lost the popular vote by 4 million. Nobody was going to the polls for Trump because they thought Mike Pence was a great pick.
Sure.
He was a neutral pick, but it's like nobody's going to the poll because of who you select as your VP. They're going either platform or I don't know, more dubious reasons. But I don't think it's not that big of a deal if he picks a name that has some progressive ambiance. It's like, what are you doing on a platform? What are you conceding to progressive voters? And I don't think they're going to do enough.
So in the perfect like liberal socialist future for America world, it would be Michelle Obama. She has she's urged
I'm sorry, Johnny. In what view? Say that again.
in the perfect liberal socialist worldview.
Michelle
for
Obama.
America.
Michelle Obama classifies as a socialist to you.
I think she's
She's not.
Borderline
No,
essentialist.
if you were saying like democratic socialist, like universal health care, adding more things, all that. I'm saying-
Neoliberal.
Neoliberal.
Yeah.
So Michelle Obama urged to run for president or VP by 3 new political fundraising groups. One of them is Ready for Mike. I mean, Michelle. Ready for Michelle. So if she went in as Biden's running mate, and if he's a one term, you could be right back at Obama for 12 years of Obama. So it would be like a perfect
It
scenario.
makes sense, right? It makes sense as far as the playbook that they've been putting out there. You know, Hillary Clinton,
She's
now
raising
Joe
money.
Biden. It's the Obama playbook. It's
If-
just fashioned a little different.
if I was Joe Biden, I would go a little bit to the curveball. As an older guy who at times forgets his words, I would go with a younger, more energetic Tulsi Gabbard. I think she's ex-military, someone who's extremely well spoken. I would pay money to hear Tulsi Gabbard debate Mike Pence. I would.
Well, no, and Dustin, what you're saying is a smart pick, but she's trying to get back in the good graces of the
No,
party.
I
But
get
she's,
it.
by her
They-
attacking
yeah.
Hillary, she is on the
And
outskirts,
they-
and they'll
you know,
never.
they
and
were-
Joe Biden's so far in it, they're still going to get the insider votes. I think you might be able to get some of that outsider trading. Like I think she's just
Yeah.
interesting. I'm a big Tulsi Gabbard fan too, so I'm a little biased.
She's
but
a little too good looking. Joe, will he keep his hands off of her?
Uh,
I mean, he might get touchy feely with her hair.
they were actually both against same-sex marriage about 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah,
so
they
they
might
could share-
they find common ground.
Yeah, there's a lot of common ground
Well,
there.
outside
like
of Bernie
remember-
Sanders
yeah.
on that stage, there's a lot of people that 8 to 10 years ago would be running as
Well,
progressive.
Well, no,
So
no.
think that's
I
a
mean,
pretty simple
none of
conversation.
us. I don't think none of us here are 47.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah,
Getting
not
close.
yet. Not yet. That's how old Elizabeth Warren was before she left the Republican Party.
Ooh,
Oh,
So-
I did not know that.
Yeah, fun fact.
But to say if it's Tulsi Gabbard you're talking about, that's like she's not 47 yet.
When did
so.
she
Oh,
leave?
no way, no way.
When did she move off the reservation?
God damn it, Johnny.
I mean, if
No, I mean those lies are pretty bad. The joke is also bad.
Two bads don't make a right.
Yeah.
So we're
Right.
split. We all have different votes. Actually, 2 Michelle Obama votes.
Yeah,
so-
I'm for
so-
Michelle.
Yeah, you
I'm
guys
about
had
Michelle
2
Obama.
Michelle's, and then there was what?
I'm
what did
for
John-
Michelle. I
Johnny
want
said
Michelle.
that,
Johnny,
and
I
then
want
mine,
Michelle.
mine. I guess mine was burn it down.
Yeah, burn it down. 2 Michelle's, 1 burn it down, 1 Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
So that's a great
Not bad.
balanced
Not
view.
bad.
Justin, you're gonna love my take later.
Oh,
I guarantee it. I almost guarantee it.
So
we'll see about that.
in a more serious note, this is something that we had been talking about for the last couple days, but LeBron James just kind of did a great job of making this more of a nationwide exposed event. That Ahmaud Arbery, a young man jogging in a neighborhood in Georgia,
Yeah.
was in the streets, was stopped on the road.
No connection to the crime.
to
Get that out there.
two stopped men with guns. He had no weapon on him. Two white men,
Not
a
police
father and a
officers.
son. And they stop him. They yell at him. You can't on the video hear the exact words that are being yelled. He
Struggle
in a struggle for his
ensues.
life, and
Gets shot 3 times with a shotgun.
yeah, young black men, unarmed, with no he gets shot down in the streets. This gets videotaped.
It was one of those things, man. It's started to go viral, in the last 2 days,
Yeah.
and as it should. But one of the most, there's so many disturbing parts to it. I encourage you guys to search the video, search
Yeah.
the story, educate yourselves. But it's 36 seconds is all it'll take, and you see a guy jogging through a neighborhood, and there's a truck stopped further up the road. The video is being recorded by somebody that is acting in concert with the 2 guys in the truck. They're blocking the path. Both are armed, and guy loses his life because he looked like a burglary suspect in the neighborhood. And so far, no charges have been issued. So this was the sad part about it, other than a guy losing his life, is that this was 2 months ago. So we're seeing it in the last 48 hours.
No
The
charges yet.
public say
Yeah.
no charges have been issued, and it's being taken to a grand jury to see if there's going to be any charges. And it's like, how embarrassing is that?
Yeah.
That it has to go that's where it has to go to even determine if there's any charges. And it's hard not to get sick at your stomach when you
Yeah.
watch the video. Like I said, you have to see it for yourself. But it's
Just watching the video, man, seeing an armed white male in the back of a pickup truck is just
standing in the
as
bed.
as a history teacher, it's just so reminiscent of a Jim Crow South that you have to ask yourself, how far removed are we from this? I think I think it's
not
fair
far.
to just ask yourself.
I said I think we're all really sensitive that it's for white males having a conversation about something like this. But I think something that we can all find common ground on is that a realignment of what matters to people and what makes your hair stand up. That we can all like and share a dog dying, and dogs being mistreated, but we see stuff like this and it just doesn't get modern circulation. And this can be a bigger conversation about media and what media decides is of value and
what causes outrage in the
Right,
community.
right.
So like if you're talking regional, if you're talking nationally, internationally, what causes outrage? And what I would ask is, it's just like, if you feel like an online activist, or if you feel like you're expressing your opinion about something, if this happening to one of your countrymen in a state in your country, if it doesn't bother you, and it doesn't at least make you think. Like, we don't all have to agree on what the status of racism in America is, but it's like, if this doesn't at least spark some thought and say, hey, maybe my existence is a little bit different than what another community has to
That's
endure.
right.
If
That's
if it doesn't at least make you think about that, but then other far less important things will have you yelling in police officers' faces, or protesting, or making signs, or if it's on the internet, reposting stuff and going on a rant. It's like, if that doesn't make you think a little bit, that's a perfect metaphor for where we're at in this country.
Absolutely.
And it's just it's tough to, like I said, it's tough to watch. And 2 months later, pretty much 2 months later, it's like, that's what justice looks like to some people in this country. So
Yeah.
I've only seen the video one time, and I think it's we talked about this before this, but it's going to be weird. My gut instinct is this will be dropped to about the lowest level of manslaughter.
Yeah.
Just because the video, you can kind of see what happens a little bit. He moves towards them, but it's going to be one of these things. It almost has to be manslaughter for almost some political reasons, because people will freak out if it's not at least taken to court. But I think they created the incident, basically. You're driving around with guns, doing the police job. And my thing was this, and it's not, I don't think it was a big deal to y'all, but I think it's the ridiculous part to me is, this wasn't hey, we have a rapist and a murderer in the neighborhood that is crazy, maybe. So, we're going around looking for anybody running. This was a robbery. Like, that is so low on the totem pole of danger in the neighborhood.
And
A burglary.
A burglary, and the only connection it's an African American.
that he's the same race as the person you
That
suspect.
they're the same color.
And that's the thing, man, is it's just like, in no other, if somebody has an example of this, or if you'd like to post an example of this, to what we're talking about in another first world country, please feel free to do that. But I honestly believe we're the only country where two average Joes, a white father and son, feel the need to arm themselves and serve out some sort of vigilante justice, and to carry out the job of law enforcement when they are not employed as police officers.
I think your point.
Who does that? Where else do they do that?
You said it before this. If the races had been reversed, I think that you were, and I'm not as big as y'all on. I try to look at it as thing by thing, but I think if the race had been reversed, almost for sure, this would already be past the grand jury. I think that
yeah.
Without a
I mean,
doubt.
even with the
Without a
same, I mean,
doubt.
identical, same video, just reverse the races. I think we're at that point, and I'm thinking, it might still only be manslaughter, maybe, but the charges at first would definitely be
and
higher than
I think
manslaughter.
that the basic problem is with essentially any other race, there has to at least be some other factor involved that literally existing and breathing while being black can be enough to be in
Yeah.
this situation. Where
And-
there's things that happen that are wrong in other ways, but there has to at least be some circumstance that puts them in a negative situation. Where in this situation, his crime was being black, and that's what I think that is the crux of
Yeah.
this particular
Well, no,
discussion.
and think about this, man. It's like this is a double-edged sword because southern states and midwestern states often get painted a certain way, especially in the Northeast and the West Coast of the country. And I know it turns a lot of people away and turns people to vote a certain way when you hear like, oh man, people here are so backward and so intolerant, and they're people here are so racist. And it's like, well, if you don't want to be painted that way, and we're from Texas, so we can say this, if you
Born and
don't
raised.
if you don't want to be painted that way, you are obligated to speak out against
That's right.
this. You are obligated to call it out not just when you see a guy being murdered. You're obligated to call it out in conversation. You're obligated to call it out when people and it's like people don't want to do that because it's uncomfortable.
Instead, you're already hearing the same playbook of
Right.
character assassination.
Yeah.
What was this guy like in high school, and what was his record like?
No,
Hey,
doesn't
guess
matter.
what? None of that shit matters.
at least his photo today was like a graduation picture or something.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
at least.
This is a fascination by white males of trying to be the neighborhood police watch or the neighborhood watch,
And
have some
nobody
sort
asked
of-
nobody asked you to do that.
Nobody have some sort of position of authority
It's like a
over
meme.
other people.
It's like a meme. Nobody, absolutely nobody. And it's like rural like a community, like white dudes with caps and shotguns.
yeah,
It's like
the same group of people that will post the thin blue line bumper stickers on the back there. Hey, let those guys do their job. Nobody is asking you to go out and police my neighborhood armed, for that matter. Just let if there's an issue, let the police handle that. thing.
we can. I think. I mean, listen. If you don't want to see it, don't watch. But it's because we're talking about it. If you haven't seen it, I mean,
They've probably seen it.
we'll post. We can post the link to it if you want. But it's just Ahmaud Arbery. It's all over the internet. If you see the link, I honestly, as separated and divided of a country as we are in 2020, I honestly believe if you see this video, you understand the context, and you know the few facts there are to know, I think this is something that most people in the country have to have. There has to be a consensus on this. Like
Yeah.
there have to be some charges, and these guys have to be arrested.
Let's,
This is one where I would love to see this system, and I know we don't have it, and it's almost impossible. But I would love to have this case taken out of Georgia, prosecuted somewhere else, and then have all racial identities completely wiped, like so that they video edit it where you have no clue. You show no color, and then the jury gets to actually
Johnny,
base it
off
with
of-
no race.
off of what you're saying, this is a
That's an
little bit of a
alternate. world.
talking to strangers is one of the books I've hyped up on here. And so we'll this be this last thing that then we'll go on to our sports take. But Malcolm Gladwell, Talking to Strangers, I'm going to shoot it out again. It talks about that, how much better judges are, or like a basic program is, when they just get the basic facts, and before they hear the people's stories and
Economics,
all
race.
that different stuff, like and like the just taking people's actions and deciding right or wrong based off actions, not off any of those things. It's like a 25% differentiator.
If you watch this video, if any objective party watches this video, if you put a Confederate flag on the back of that truck, we're in the year 2020. If you put a Confederate flag on the back of that truck, how is that any different
Absolutely.
than a lynching that happens in the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, all the way back? And
That's fair.
it's no different. And if any conversation treats it as anything less than a lynching, I think it's disingenuous.
I agree. Let's move on. It's a little bit more fun, lighty. It's always hard to switch from this conversation.
We're like
to
the
anything
regular
else,
media
but,
right now.
But so it's a tough. So we don't want to. I'm not trying to act like, but we are a sports podcast as well. So I just wanted to start off with a little bit of the modern NBA stuff. The excitement, the pain that comes with NBA. The fact that it might be available, might not. It
May 15th,
it gives me a little bit of anxiety.
May
but
15th.
if you have anxiety, if you have stress, if you have any of those different things that maybe the NBA or anything's going, I recommend you go to Natural Heights on 210-592-1060. It's off of Nacogdoches Road. Get you some CBD oil. It'll take care of you. It'll relax you, whether there's an NBA season or not. I think we have 4 people rooting for an NBA season. Right now, it looks like Orlando or Las Vegas
Right? Yeah,
are the
MGM.
two places with bids out right
Vegas,
now.
please. Vegas.
Let's
go.
I
Do
think
the Eastern Conference in Orlando and the West
man,
in Vegas.
yeah, there you go.
Right?
would be
Deal.
extremely awesome. I think there's 4 people at least in this room that'll be heavily rooting for that. But at the same point, to bring up the opposite side of that, in the midst of this pandemic, the amount of testing that they would need to be able
It's
to
a lot of tests.
a lot of tests
Maybe-
that would
maybe
not
more
be
than we
going
have.
to other people. That there's some obvious
Buy some from South Korea.
questions that might be brought up. But what are y'all's? Let's take out some of the moral dilemmas first. We'll talk about that later. But how exciting would at this particular time a quick they're talking about, I think 72 games is what gets them some money.
Oh,
Yeah.
shoot.
I
I didn't think it was that many.
So no, it's 56. Maybe there's a number. There's a number. I'm forgetting. I wrote
Probably
it
the
down.
same, close to the same as the lockout year, and they go, if we get X
Yeah.
amount of games.
Yeah, there's an
Yeah.
X amount of game
Just-
where they
just
have to
under
get
60, I think.
Yeah.
is
But
what
hey,
it is.
Yeah.
let's not lie, man. We're desperate at this point. I'll watch
I'm
Turkish
rooting for
mud wrestling, man. It's whatever,
They have that.
I hope they have that.
Absolutely.
Sounds
So-
awesome.
we watched it on TV before.
So there is
Female
some
mud
hope.
wrestling, I hope
Yeah.
as well.
I personally am hopeful for whenever we've already spoke of the great LeBron James. He's made a comment that he is really pushing for he's pushing for this season to continue. I think we would all be highly favorable.
A ring's a ring, right?
A ring is a ring.
I thought LeBron wasn't playing without fans, man. That's what I heard last.
Wishy washy.
That's a good thing about being LeBron, man. He's always got fans. You know, so
Chameleon.
that's right.
He didn't say if
so
they were
does,
in person.
So does Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But go
Oh
on.
shit! Yeah.
Okay,
Hey, I
there's
thought we
paradox,
weren't
too.
going to say
Yeah,
that.
damn it.
What the hell?
Nice job,
Yeah,
Sean.
I mean,
Sean's
Control
down the
yourself.
5-minute penalty
Jo-
box.
Johnny, what do you think, man? What do you think?
Well, the
First of all, is it likely? Second of all, how do you think it would look?
it's going to be a repeat of the Spurs asterisk championship. To me, there's a silver lining. I know. Trust me. I think it's a legit
Gutted me.
championship. I know. But the silver lining for me is if it doesn't happen, then that's one less chance for LeBron to get a ring. But
LeBron haters are everywhere.
well, no, but
Ah.
now let me put the other side of it. Now, let's say this does work out and they get the season going, and then LeBron goes through all this, comes back when all these teams are out of shape, and he rallies his team and gets a championship.
Because
A-
LeBron stays in shape.
Asterisk or no asterisk,
Post all his
like
workouts
that,
on Instagram.
everybody's
it.
going through the same thing, right? They're all overcoming the same things. If LeBron goes through that, does his thing, and wins a championship, I think that'll, screw
Side
the
note,
asterisk, screw that.
If you're not
That's good.
posting your workouts on Instagram, are you really working out?
The answer.
I know the Bucks are
the
working
answer
out.
is yes, and maybe even harder than if you post them. But yeah.
But yeah, that would be exciting. Some Greek freak, some LeBron James,
Some
The Greek freak's in the
Luka,
gym.
some
He's in a gym. He had
some
one.
Luka,
Yeah,
some Luka
yeah.
magic.
yeah, one
Luka.
round to Luca before he gets bounced. That'd be nice.
Oh, this is ridiculous.
Is Luca old enough to gamble afterwards?
Hating ass dudes.
Oh, it's
Hey,
nice.
you're talking to the
I-
heir apparent. of
I'm
the
a
league
Mavs
right
fan.
I think the Mavs
I'm
would
with the
get
Mavs now, man. More than the Spurs.
Johnny, is that because you really are? Or is that because you had money on the Mavs winning more
They
than
need
41?
one more game.
Are the Mavs
One more game.
are Mavs top 3 in the Turkish league right now?
The Mavs win the Turkish league by
Yeah,
30 apiece.
yes,
But
yes.
Shane Larkin gives
Shane
them
Lar-
buckets though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shane Larkin.
Shane
shout out
Larkin
Shane
or
Larkin.
Jalen Brunson, better starting point guards.
Jalen Brunson's legit.
Larkin's
dude.
tough.
They're both very
But
good.
Larkin's tough,
Jalen
man.
Hey,
Brunson's legit.
honestly, I can tell you from experience because before the COVID thing, I was living in Europe. Shane Larkin has elevated himself.
Subtle flex.
He was
Really?
he was a demigod in European basketball this year. The way he was playing, dude, that it had a lot of people saying, why isn't he in the league and why didn't he stay in the league?
How old
But
is he? What age?
He's
right
he's
now?
still pretty young, man. I mean,
Dude, he should be in the league.
he's under maybe
He's
under
like
if
28,
DJ,
29?
hey,
Yeah.
DJ Augustine is in the league and Shane Larkin isn't.
I mean,
Come on,
hey,
man.
he honestly,
all about agents.
honestly though, if you ask
US
anybody,
right agent.
anybody on the
But
continent,
he's making more money than DJ Augustine.
yeah,
though,
he is
for
Yeah,
sure.
Anybody that knows anything about basketball in Europe, if you say Shane Larkin, like it's like okay, got him,
Really?
got
Huh.
him. Yeah, he killed this year, dude.
That's great stuff, man. That's great stuff. So we're all fingers crossed for an NBA playoffs. Be exciting time, especially with college sports. They're gonna have a tough time getting things going back. So the professional game we're rooting for. Let's talk a little bit about the MJ documentary. What were you guys' first thoughts on that? I know Johnny doesn't believe in the documentary.
I
He
lived
has
it.
lived it.
I lived it.
That's
I was there.
We need a Johnny T-shirt on. I don't need a documentary. I lived it.
Be like Mike.
Um,
I was with Mike.
So
Come on.
Sean, give you first
Hey,
thoughts on. the
I'll
MJ
start it
doc.
off, and I promise by saying I'll preface this by saying we're not gonna cycle back to politics, but what I thought was
We might.
most interesting, what I thought was most I really like that MJ is he's so unapologetically removed from politics and being politically correct in regards to the North Carolina Senate race, when so much of the African American community was kind of, getting behind him. But is MJ going to endorse our candidate? But and I like that MJ's just, hey, I'm an athlete. Don't try to box me into something. Don't say because I'm this or that I need to speak up for a certain individual.
He had
and
a
I like
singular focus.
Yeah, he was worried about what am I going to do in between these lines, and then how much money am I going to lose when I gamble after the game?
Yeah, well, but isn't that? I mean, it goes both ways. It's like when I was watching that, I could respect it, but at the same time, it's like, well,
It also
if it
makes you
wa-
appreciate guys like LeBron too.
sure,
that
sure,
will
but
speak out.
but it's like if it was two moderates, if it was center left and center right running against each other, or even two extremes by today's standards, okay, cool, but it was a bit weird that the guy that he's running against is an avowed segregationist. That was on record, like spent most of his career in favor of segregation, and it's like, oh, you can't use your name to, and like I said, it goes both ways.
No doubt.
Goes
But
both
that
ways.
doesn't mean that every African American
You're not
NBA
obligated.
player today
No,
is obligated.
you're
And
not.
that's what I'm saying.
You're
Is
not obligated.
let's not put a box to put all these guys
No, that's
in between
fair.
and say
I think
You
we all
can't
took.
vote Republican if you're black. Is
We-
what
we-
you're. I mean, that's all. I mean,
that's not
No,
what I'm
well,
saying.
I-
Nobody's
I-
saying that.
don't think that's what it
please,
was.
Please don't do that.
The side to that to kind of
Justin's like, yes, that's
to-
what we're saying.
to be in the middle of you guys was MJ afterwards admitted that he was with the guy because he gave money to him. He said he just didn't want to speak out. He wanted to
Yeah,
be able
yeah.
to be focused on his stuff, because I thought that was an interesting piece with that as well. But yeah, my biggest thing
Did
was
Nike tell him something?
they did not.
Republicans
We
buy
weren't
sneakers
there.
too.
He said that. Yeah, that was his great quote. My biggest take from that thing, I have a little line, but I'll stick with just this one. Media sucks.
Agree.
MJ gambled like many Americans. He didn't gamble on any NBA games. He gambled on
Theoretically.
golf and different things. And let's be honest, if MJ would have gambled, he would have gambled on winning. He would.
Oh
not have-
yeah,
he
he'd
would
have been
not
Pete
have
Rose.
gambled on
He would've been
losing.
the Pete Rose again.
So, but there is no documentation on that. Everything that was accused of him were things that were legal at the time, and it drove him out of a game of basketball. I just generally hate how media has this ability to lift someone up, and then, okay, we're tired of this guy, and then it's time to find a flaw, and because we're
Make
human
some
beings,
headlines.
because we're human beings, we all have flaws. And then we tear them down because that's what we like to do. It kind of reminded me of Tiger Woods. Like, yeah, Tiger Woods cheated on his wife.
He kinda did
That
to himself.
sucks.
Wreck the golf
No,
cart.
that sucks, but it's not illegal. It's not like it's one of those things where you can argue and debate with like
This is
media.
not an apologist podcast for
Anybody.
adult
We're not
Because
we're not
anybody-
believing that that's a good thing. It's one of those things though. But as humans, we have flaws. We
Yeah,
all make
yeah.
mistakes, and calling out and tearing someone down because they have flaws is different. If the guy did something illegal, that's a legitimate story.
Like
But
driving
having a
drunk?
flaw,
abusing prescription medication may be illegal.
Driving drunk as hell.
I'm not trying to attack Tiger Woods. I'm sorry. I was just, it was just trying to be funny.
But that's not what he was accused of, and that's not what people
that's
were
right.
worried
no,
about.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
it was
you're
the,
right.
it was
That's
the,
not-
it was the infidelity.
No,
it's
and
just
I
like-
get what you are saying that it wasn't. I'm not recommending that move by any means, but that's not what
Not
he
with
was.
that wife.
That's
Holy
not what his
crap.
reputation was torn apart for. It was that was not the mistake that was in the news.
I
Is all
feel
I'm
that.
saying. Like I hate this idea that someone is made up to that level, and then it's like, okay, we're tired of this. Now let's tear this person down.
Hey,
It's
what if he was winning during that time? Do people
Oh, it would
jump
have been
on
a
Tiger Woods?
much less of a story.
Oh,
well,
still
it
winning.
basically turns into the MJ story. It's not less of
Yeah.
a story. MJ, you watch this documentary, his winning doesn't do anything. MJ's putting up 36 points a night during this little stretch, and it doesn't stop at all. The media, it's just a narrative. They do the building up, and then eventually when they get tired, they do the tearing down.
Yeah.
They're paid. I mean, and they're paid to create stories. They're paid to create content. Like it's to an extreme nowadays, but in the '90s it was the same. I really loved the interview they did with them. Like where they're
His
asking
interviews are so legit.
Oh my god, dude! Like that's to be honest, like he's an icon in multiple ways, and it was like they asked him, do you have a gambling problem, Michael?
It's such a good,
Dude said,
such a good quote.
And he starts laughing.
I got too much money. to have
No,
on there.
No, let him-
I-
let him hit it.
He
Let him
said,
hit it with
he
it.
said, I don't have a gambling problem. I have a competition
Dude,
problem.
that's
I'm too competitive,
Fucking
and
awesome.
I'm just like, hey man, and
that's
it's like,
incredible.
and it's like really, I don't profess to know what goes on in the minds of gambling addicts, but it's just like, man,
Well, let me
a
talk
lot-
to you for 30 minutes.
Yeah, Johnny knows.
Dude,
And it's
what?
like, but it's no, it's like some of those people don't have money, but it's like I'll tell a very short story of we went to back when summer basketball was a thing. We were in Vegas.
the
We,
days.
we were in Vegas, for I think Adidas Super 60, and we're in a casino. I won't say which one, but we're in a casino. Sorry, we're in Caesar's Palace, and we see a
Oh.
guy. We get really
Is this
excited.
Caesar's actual palace?
Don't gamble
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Do not gamble there.
We see we hit like a jackpot, but a small one, I mean, and I say by small, I mean 3 guys splitting the buy. It was like a 3K, whatever. So we're pretty excited. It's awesome. And then we look over, and there's this guy he's playing on the $100 slots, just 100, boom, 100, boom. Every spin is $100, and then he hits a jackpot that's like $12,000
Jeez.
and shows no emotion.
No.
Like not an ounce of emotion. And so I had a few at that point, walked up to him and I'm like, hey man, didn't you just win? He said, yeah, but I'm still 8 in the hole.
Yep.
It's like this dude was $20,000 down
Yep.
before he won a $12,000 jackpot. And it's just like to a regular person that doesn't register, and it's like, why are you what's wrong with you?
Well,
But for
someone-
people that have the money,
yeah.
it's just like it's a competitive thing. Like I got to win.
And someone had a good point on the documentary was what he was doing in his terms of how much money he had was no
Chump
different
change.
than what you were doing with the penny
No,
slots.
the dude said it was like $10.
yeah,
or-
it's nothing.
Shit.
And then I just he's such a real one. Like you watch the competitiveness that like the value he put on $20 with those quarter games that he was throwing with the security guard, like it just
Hey, that dude's
winning-
haircut was
He's
so
still
fucking-
mad. He's
legit.
still mad about it.
The one white guy in his security detail was that guy is a legend.
dude, that guy
He
guy
has
was
to be a killer to look like that and being
And
Michael Jordan security.
he was
he's a killer.
Permed,
Yeah.
curly
Permed
mullet.
up. And
Permed mullet.
every time he beat Jordan, he hit Jordan with the MJ
Yeah.
hands up. Like
Jordan
he was
is
like
a killer,
putting
man.
it to him, man. It was great stuff. On this documentary, the Jordan Rules book gets talked about, and how that was the first domino to some of this media stuff that him, the dark side, for lack of a better term, of MJ, and it talks about how Horace Grant was really good friends with the guy, and how he was at least the scapegoat for that. So that was really interesting. At the times of this, I was pretty young, so a lot of the Jordan Rules book and all that stuff was the timeline. Learning about that was pretty new to me, and so that was really interesting stuff. And
What about
Your media sucks things and it kind of makes me mad about this because they finally came out and they said, well, Jordan's saying this bad stuff about Krause and stuff. And then another, I was listening to a talk radio guy, I'm not going to say his name, but he goes, do you want him to not be him? He goes, he still was mad about it. And he's not going to change his story
Right.
now that,
Yeah.
and I don't want to crap on the guy that died, but it sucks for me because we didn't get to see, basically because of this guy.
he
Krause.
stole 3 or 4 years of basketball.
Yeah, and we
for
didn't
sure.
get to see Jordan versus Duncan and Robinson. That would have been that year's championship.
Yeah.
We also missed out on Jordan versus Olajuwon 2 years for other
Yeah.
reasons. Not necessarily that wasn't Krause.
Might have missed a
Maybe
year
you could
of
say
Jordan
media- you
versus Kobe Shaq. I mean,
Yes.
Possibly.
so
Yeah,
many. I
possibly.
mean, like you're talking about epic,
No, for
epic
sure. Yeah,
things,
not
and
possible.
instead, look at the games we got. It was Spurs versus
Knicks,
the Knicks.
8 seed.
and
Knicks.
then the other.
76ers,
I mean, who'd the
Lakers.
Rockets beat?
well, dude,
Yeah, I mean,
Krause,
terrible finals.
It's not crapping on Krause because, dude, you just get like it's one of those things where he's just giving you the sound bites. Like it's not like he's just talking about after championships. You know what I'm really proud of is we just have the greatest organization in the world.
Yeah.
It's like maybe in your first sentence you mentioned Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen.
Yeah.
Like I might do that.
yeah,
I might
maybe-
not shout myself out before I'm Michael Jordan if
Like,
I'm
yeah,
like that
like-
might be intelligent.
Like maybe
Yep.
we have the best players.
yeah.
And then our organization is also good because we brought the players
Yeah.
here, but maybe we have the best players.
Yeah.
And it's just like that's one of my
Hey,
favorite nuances of the
I'm-
show is like just Michael and Scotty picking on him.
Well, hey, look,
Picking on him every chance they get. And
Look-
it's just like
look
fuck
this up.
guy.
How many All Stars did Krause draft besides Pippen, Jordan, and who else? Horace Grant.
Well, Kukoc. Kukoc was a
So
multiple-time
4
All-Star. He
in
drafted
18
him.
or 20 years.
No, I mean he
didn't draft
well, and
Pippen.
I think
Oh, he didn't even
if,
draft
if
him.
he wasn't
Wow.
dead, he would probably say something like, "Well, I put pieces in place and I did all this
Yeah.
shit." And it's like, dude, if you have Jordan and Scotty, there's any
Judd
number,
Busher
there's,
is a piece.
I'm saying there's any number of guys
Yeah.
that you can piece with those
Sure.
two,
And they
ma-
didn't
and
always
make
do
it
a great
work,
job.
man.
You look at the centers they had. He didn't
Oh
necessarily
Jordan never hey, if Horace
he
Grant
didn't necessarily hit the home run on centers.
No. If
Like-
honestly, if
Bill Whittington.
if Horace Grant is the highest profile big that he played with, if we're talking power forwards and centers, and we are because
Well,
back in the day
Rodman's-
you actually had
yeah.
those two.
Yeah.
But it's like if Horace Grant is the highest scoring, a highest
Correct, yeah,
scoring
scoring,
power
that's fair.
forward or center
Yeah.
that he played with, it's like it makes it all that much more impressive.
I agree. It's just every time he speaks, since he's died, you want to see something favorable or redeemable in him.
He's Carol
No,
Baskin.
but-
He's Carol
no.
Baskin.
But dude, it's just like
Yeah,
every
yep.
time, like how insecure are you? Like
For
why
sure. Yeah.
why on earth would you not just milk this cow?
Super-
And
Yeah.
he would have been considered the greatest GM of
Yep.
all time if
My-
he just shut his mouth
my
and
my
did his
guess
job.
is super insecure because he's as tall as this chair and is twice as
you're a
wide
height-
and twice as wide.
Justin's a
He's-
height
yeah.
enthusiast.
So yeah,
Hey, what do y'all think?
that's why he was salty.
on a side note to go off Krause, like the MJ
It's Kraus, Dustin.
Jerry Krause. Sorry, sorry, he's in his
You can
grave.
mess
He's
his name up.
Krause. Krause.
Well,
sorry.
no, Johnny for the
Krause, my
longest
bad.
time it was Jokic.
Yeah,
Jokic,
I'm sticking
sorry.
with it. I'm sticking
G-
with it.
Giannis.
Sorry, yeah,
I gotta own it.
Bro.
My bad. I'm brain
I
fried.
gotta
Thank you,
own it.
JB. Thank you. I
I
get the
can't
George.
change now.
I
I'm
get
just
the
fucking with you guys.
I get the
George.
George W. Bush misspeak of the day. I'll work on that next time. The MJ, taking turns ending careers each documentary. Watching Clyde Drexler. I mean, there's a lot of favorite parts. It gave me goosebumps seeing the competitor he was talking about. He was so calm. He's like, yeah, they kind of put me and Clyde on the same page, and he's like, I really didn't like that. I really didn't like that. I had something to
Yeah.
prove. Like
Hey,
it gave
and
me
there's
goosebumps
no-
seeing that, and he's right.
And there's no emotion in it.
No,
There's no emotion. It's just it's fact. Like
it was one of those that, as for people that have been around basketball, it's just like another level of. It's like, you know what, I've done things at a different level than these guys. Like it's nothing, and he would give him respect. He's like, Clyde's a great player, but comparing us is just it's just-
Today's it would be some PC answer. It would be a PC answer from almost every star in
no,
the league
no,
today.
I mean that's true. I mean, you can see even by the post game press conferences.
Who would say something
those
like
guys,
that?
Those guys are allowed to cuss. They're allowed to say exactly what they want. It's like today,
Russell
if you-
Westbrook. I think
yeah.
that's why he likes Russ.
Actually, you're right.
Yeah.
Russ
If
would
you
say
say
something
Nah,
that,
like
that's
you-
probably one of the
yeah,
guys that would be like, Westbrook, like, nah, man, I'm better than him. He's not in my league. I got triple doubles.
Today,
Maybe
if you say the wrong thing, you might lose like $50K in endorsements that evening. So
No,
Good
it
call-
was
good
it
call
was
on
it
Westbrook.
was really interesting on that. Those are my big ones on that one. And then did you have any dream team thoughts, JB?
man, was really cool for them to show the Monaco scrimmage. Not some people have seen that. Not everybody gets to see that. And it's like that when multiple guys, when you've got Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Jordan, and multiple other guys saying that that's the best basketball they've been a part of.
Yeah.
And that's not even, you're not talking about games like games in the league or games in the Olympics. It's like you're talking about an inter squad scrimmage and them saying that's the best basketball they've ever been a part of.
It was like game 7 every possession.
That's fucking cool to me.
Yeah.
And it's like you've got Magic and Jordan talking shit to each other, and Jordan says it's the 90s, and then Magic is saying like, hey, he gets pissed when Jordan gets a call, and he's like, this is just like the NBA. And it's like
That
for
was
those
awesome.
and it's like that's
was great
I don't know if you get to. The one thing I will say is just like we always hear old heads, really jump on this wagon of like, oh man, it was basketball so much better in the 80s and 90s, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, the one thing I will say to that, players are more athletic and talented today overall. But the one thing I will say to that, I don't know if you get that intensity
No, I agree.
of an inter squad
That's
scrimmage for a national team. I don't think you ever
No.
see that again.
No,
And
I can't argue with that.
I don't. It's
And I think that's as much a sign of how great those MJ and
Yeah.
Magic are at the time. I'm not even going to show love to the times over those guys are just built
Yeah.
different than the
it's
guys
just-
that we have
it's
today.
It's the people. And
Can
it's
I give a side story just going off Clyde Drexler that I was reading an article that was just showing the clout that MJ had. One of those dream team scrimmages, Clyde Drexler accidentally brought 2 left shoes, and he was so worried about letting MJ know. So like he decided to play in 2 left shoes, and MJ eventually figured this out.
That's
and
how
the
you
first
man
thing,
up.
and the first thing MJ said is like, okay, great, I know how to use this. Like that's what MJ's head games were. Like a high level all NBA player didn't want to ask a bus to turn around to get the right foot shoe. He decides to play with 2 left footed shoes instead of.
I can't help but like that's a great story, and I can't help but think like, is this why Jordan and Isaiah? Because Isaiah kind of doesn't really back down. Like, is Isaiah Thomas really Jordan's biggest foe? Maybe
Isaiah's little man playing in NBA and a chip on his shoulder, and then beat the big guys and went toe to toe. He has no.
Is that
Come
the
on,
reason
man.
for the animosity though?
Oh,
like,
I
do you think-
love
part of it.
I love
probably
the,
a big part
I
of it.
love the
'cause
animosity.
it seemed
by
like
the way.
Clyde is just say, I'm not going to say he didn't compete in the finals, but it seems
It's-
like Clyde already knew.
It's
walking in.
the top Isaiah Thomas Jordan line after you watch the video and goes, I don't care what he says, he's still an asshole. I
It's
love
right
that
after
one.
his straight up bitches.
Well, let's
Oh man, Horace Grant.
those were 2 of the top ones. Let's go off of Isaiah Thomas Dream Team. Great call on the Dream Team stuff. This had us thinking in the group text, and our group text normally bleed into podcast conversation.
It's fun. Let me tell you.
We talked about Isaiah Thomas, and then Michael makes a conversation that he goes, regardless of how much I freaking hated Isaiah Thomas, his name never came up. I never said no to him. In my mind, I'm speaking in MJ's words, it's Magic at 1, Isaiah at 2. And then we started talking, well, okay, who's our top 5 all time? So we all have our lists. We all have our reasons. Let's start off at number 1.
And let's say, just to preface this, order matters.
Correct.
Because
For
a
sure.
lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
a lot of
Oh,
us
yeah.
will have the same
Oh, yeah.
guys, but order matters.
For
Let's,
sure.
let's hear that.
And guys, remember, like you guys have been a part of this podcast enough. Sean's got certain takes that are good, but ranking talent's not always his thing. So you guys rate him on a curve when we're doing this. All right, don't hold him accountable to excellence like you would maybe like a JB or a Dustin. Give him a little bit of a curve, and especially Johnny, because Johnny won't get anybody before 1990. He's gonna.
Oh, not true.
It'll be all white.
No.
White 5'9" shooters.
My
from-
white enthusiast team.
Danny Ainge is in that
From the
shit for sure.
Montreal
Yeah,
Canadiens
let's
or
hear- let's
someone
hear
that.
this.
So my number one's Magic. Anybody picking anyone different at number 1?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, for point guard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sean had
Oh.
something different.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
my number one is Stockton, man. If you lead the NBA all time in 2 of the major statistical categories, and not only that, but he's just a dog to me, man. He
Do you
doesn't-
like a point guard that wins championships and or as a young player can switch to center and win a championship if you need to.
I just need a contender. I'll do the rest.
Okay,
give
so
me a
you
contender.
don't need to win the whole thing.
Yeah, as
okay.
as a coach,
Okay,
give me a
I like
contender.
that.
I'll take care of the rest.
You know, I really, really like the idea of picking a guy ahead of. Yeah, that's great. We just don't want champions at the top. That's great. Anyone else have Stockton at number 1? Are we Magic the rest of the way?
Magic.
I can't remember what
Magic.
Magic. I'm
Come on,
going.
That
Johnny,
sounds
be
about right,
prepared.
Johnny.
What does your heart
damn
say,
it.
I'm looking
Johnny?
at.
All right.
I'm trying to find my list.
We've got Stockton, Magic. I can't remember. You'll know exactly who did those.
All right, let's hear the
my
next one.
my number 2
I'm going Steph Curry
is also Steph Curry. Steph is my number 2 as well.
as a point guard.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a point guard. You just yelled Steph Curry yourself. So
Oh,
you
I
must
thought we were
agree.
doing like the best point guard, best
All right,
two guard.
Johnny. Let's
Okay,
let's just
fine.
try and hide the fact that you're inept at doing anything organized. So number 2 is Steph. I put him down because I think he is wildly slept on. I think because he doesn't necessarily look the part. I think even modern players kind of sleep on him a little bit, and I just think his greatness and the way he's changed and evolved the game. Steph's the man. Steph's
Sean,
my number
Sean
2.
who you got, buddy?
Actually, at my number 2, ahead of Magic, is Steph, and I think
I'm
that
sorry,
anybody,
Magic's not top 2 for you. though.
anybody,
That's tough.
yeah. Well, Steph changed the game. He forever changed the game, and I'm not saying that Magic's not a great.
Well,
player.
Magic saved the game. Magic and Larry Bird created modern
So Sean,
basketball.
all right. So Sean, you got
Okay.
Stockton Curry,
I got
right?
Stockton. I got
Johnny-
Stockton Curry. Yeah.
Sean, Johnny, who you got?
No, my legit is Magic Stockton. It goes Magic Stockton
Okay.
All right.
All right. So you just yell out things. You're not Curry top 2.
because you said I
That's-
couldn't go before
mine-
the
mine-
night.
Yes,
Mine's,
we're trying to rank the point guards.
I'm going. I'm going Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah,
And,
that's fair.
and this is
That's my number 3. There,
Check-
Steph and Isaiah were
yeah,
right there.
yeah. And check it out, man. Like at the moment, that's who I have. Steph's not done playing yet, so like I said, this is subject to change. The other three on my list are done playing, but yeah, at the moment, I'm saying Magic, Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah. I mean, man, Isaiah won back-to-back championships when Larry Bird, Magic, and Mike
Yeah.
were all.
Well, no,
in the league.
and that's
I mean, you just
it's
can't-
a talent.
can't
It's a
sleep on
talented
it.
team. It's a tough team, and it's
Yeah.
just like if you're talking about the position of point guard, guy does everything.
Yeah.
He'll light you up. He'll set you up. He'll guard. That's I mean, to me, regardless of opinion, Magic, and then Isaiah.
My thought was the way I ranked it. Like there was a little bit of like if there was tiers, was Magic, Steph, and Thomas are in that elite of elite tier, and then my second tier was my next 2,
So
and then
who's your-
2 other guys.
So third, you got
my one's Magic, 2 Steph, and 3's Isaiah.
Okay.
And I think it was a coin toss for
Yeah.
Steph and Isaiah.
Sean. Who you got third,
Okay,
man?
my third is Magic. No surprise there.
All right,
Right? Just
okay.
going on to the fourth guy that we
Okay.
haven't brought up yet. Might be y'all's fifth is J Kidd. Guy that can do it, man.
I'll
Here
mention
we
him
go.
later.
Here we go.
Jay Kidd?
Shout
Jay Kidd's
out
at my 4.
Shout out Mavs though.
My number 4 is John Stockton. Sean talked about him. I didn't think I'd be the one sleeping on him because he's number 1. But I mean, Stockton was one of those guys that you hear some of the old heads talk about him. Like some of them compared him to being as hard as anybody they ever played because he's always made the right decision.
Yeah.
He made the right
John-
decision every time. Tough guy, played for a long time.
Yeah.
Great player.
Who you got 3 and 4, Johnny?
So I'm Magic, Stockton, Curry, Isaiah.
Okay.
Magic, Stockton, Curry.
All right.
yeah.
My number. What am I at? 3.
4.
My number. Yeah. Curry is my 3. Steve Nash is my number 4.
Oh God.
And that, honestly, dude.
So
yeah,
who are you leaving off? So you have Magic, Steph, Isaiah,
I've got Magic, Isaiah, then Steph,
Magic,
then
Isaiah.
Nash.
So you have Nash over Stockton.
I do.
Okay.
How many MVPs does Stockton have? And I don't give a fuck like what anybody says about. Oh well, Kobe
God.
deserved it this year. Well, whatever. No, the votes are the votes. Nash was the MVP of the league twice, and
His numbers were
and-
insane.
And also, is Stockton a better defender?
Yes.
Every
Yes.
day of the week.
Yeah,
No, man. It's a rhetorical question. Of course, he's a better defender, but Nash is infinitely, and I do mean this, infinitely more talented on offense than Stockton.
That's mathematically
I
impossible.
don't know about
To
well,
be infinitely more.
well, yeah.
Because he's pretty.
Well, no,
Pretty good.
two MVPs and just as many.
Let me
championships.
guys,
let me
this
ask you a question real quick. So if
Nash is better than Curry offensively,
No,
okay.
no.
let me
that's
ask
why
you this,
Curry was
JB.
third.
Let me ask you this:
Gotcha.
if John
Okay.
Stockton, if John Stockton grows up and is in the environment that Nash is, and Stockton plays for a guy
Sounds
like
my
D'Antoni
argument.
and gets to shoot 6-7 threes a game,
He's putting up numbers.
No.
You watch how
Easily.
many clutch.
He
like,
averages 24,
No.
easily 24.
No, you guys
sure.
are fucking delusional.
Guys, there's a disclaimer. First of all, Justin's drinking beer that's about 40% alcohol.
Oh.
Second of all, his favorite player is Dirk Nowitzki. Okay, I didn't want to bring that up. I don't want to bring that up, but like his top 5 doesn't have a lot of defense. I love him. I love him. If we're in pickup, I'm picking him up first every single time. We'll, it is what it is. We'll probably bitch
Who
each other.
needs defense?
Yeah, but I know that I'm gonna have to take up the slack on defense, and when we go down on the other end, Justin's gonna fucking score the bucket.
That's good.
But
That's
yeah,
good
defense not very
let's
valued. Over
let's
there.
go on to number 5. My 5 is the exact guy. So I don't think I think there's a gap between him and. But my last couple guys were. Let me ask you guys. So if you guys agree that this is the basic, like the fight for the 5th, Steve Nash is up there. You have Jason Kidd. I think Chris Paul is in this level. Wouldn't you agree that he's in
the
this conversation?
Man.
So I was between these are the 3 guys that I wrote down.
Right
I was
there.
between Chris Paul, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, and then I had to go with I think all 3 of those guys based on what your criteria is could change. But Steve Nash I thought changed the game. I think offensively he is. It's between him and Steph, the 2 most revolutionary players. I mean, he was an artist with the ball. You said, he won one of the best little eras of basketball. He won back-to-back MVPs.
Yeah, and if you play with a rim
shouldn't
protector, if you play with a rim
Right
protector,
coach, right system. He's the man.
if you play with a rim protector,
Those are
then
Kobe's
he's covered. If
Yeah.
you don't play with a rim protector, then his lack of defense is highlighted.
He had a great situation.
Yeah,
He had a great
he did.
situation.
He absolutely great situation.
But you can argue that about Isaiah Thomas, Steph, Magic. You can't just be great. You've got to be put in a position to succeed. You even saw that with Mike. Mike needed the right coach, the right role players. I mean, you have to have a situation. So
The
I
right
think,
who
teams
do
to
you-
beat
so
him up
Dustin,
to
who
make
do you
him
have?
tougher.
Yeah.
so my 5 is Magic, Steph, Isaiah Thomas, John Stockton, and my number 5 is Steve Nash.
okay.
My number 6 would have been Chris Paul. My number 7 would have been J Kidd.
All right, Sean.
Yeah. So my list goes down: Stockton, Curry, Magic. Jason Kidd was 4 for me, and then Isaiah Thomas 5.
I appreciate that shit. Johnny, what do you got?
With just a little tiny explanation. So I picked Magic first in the reality because
Danny
he's
Ainge.
6'9",
Danny
size.
Ainge coming up.
He's 6'9", the size, you can't teach it. He's got an advantage
course.
over most point guards.
Everybody.
Stockton, because he's the guy with defense. Like out of all these guys, just the tenacious defense. Curry, the best offense. Isaiah, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think Isaiah had a little dog and good
For
offense.
sure.
And this is my outside the box moment for the day. Little known fact. Will Chamberlain ran the point
Oh my
guard.
gosh.
Ran the point guard for the Harlem Globetrotters.
Are
He
you
had
fucking
he
kidding
had
me?
13 assists a game one season.
Guys-
What point guards
guys,
how many point guards had 13 assists in a season?
They're
Oh,
playing
this is
against a
terrible.
team that's
Yeah,
designed to
airing this.
lose.
Not-
yeah, but
Johnny.
in the NBA,
Yeah, Johnny,
he averaged 13 assists
Not
a
many
game.
of them.
We're not talking about when guys were wearing fucking chucks to play in.
Not many
Johnny.
point guards are triple teamed
All right.
on the block.
The last
God
the
damn it.
last one I went with y'all with the real one was Nash just because the offense. But I have a question for Justin on this. In all honesty, Prime.
Yeah.
How well does Stockton guard Nash? Does Nash average the same amount of points versus Stockton?
Can-
honestly,
he get through
absolutely,
pick and
'cause it's all
roll?
ball screens.
honestly,
No, he gets through ball screens.
Nah,
He's the
I-
toughest little point guard probably ever.
Honestly,
I don't
this
think
is-
he gives
and-
them
and-
business.
and-
All-time
and just
steal leader.
no, and to answer your question and round out my 5, I had Stockton as 5. Nash cooks him, I think.
Yes, he gives him the
Na-
business.
Nash cooks him because if we're really talking here, who that Stockton ever locked up or who that Stockton ever guarded, and as good as he was, and it's like
All-time steals leader.
Yeah. I'm saying
No one Nash's
did
size
not-
ever
he
gave
did-
him trouble.
he
It was
did-
always putting 6'6" long guys.
no,
on
no,
him.
and Nash,
no one his size
Nash,
ever fucked with him.
Nash is not a big player, and he's 2 inches taller than Stockton. And nobody that Stockton ever guarded is a score first point guard. Like he played in an era. He was fortunate to play in an era.
No hand check
where-
era or hand check era, and he can hold them and fight through screens
Na-
and just
na-
do all
na-
this dirty
hey,
stuff.
I encourage
Could come down to
I
that.
encourage basketball enthusiasts
Yeah, I
that are
wonder-
watching the podcast
yeah.
weigh in on this. But and my
I
personal
feel like I'm being
opinion,
an old head on this.
No,
one
no,
a little
no.
bit.
My personal opinion. I think Nash. I
no
think Nash
one-
cooks Stockton, but that's
Don't you
that's
think
me.
Chris Paul is at least a comparable?
Oh, dude,
Yeah,
I like.
I mean,
yeah.
Chris Paul's a great.
I don't
defender.
like Chris Paul, but his
But like-
numbers and
but
shit
like-
were insane.
So
for 5,
Chris
6
Paul,
years.
like just to give like a reference, Chris Paul wouldn't even be the guy that would guard whenever it would have to be like a Matt Barnes or someone like
Yeah.
Like you threw the 6'6" guy with length on him. Like if you were Steve Nash's size, his ability to see angles was just too.
No, you can't guard that. That's a great point. You can't guard Steve Nash with a 3. You could guard John Stockton with a 3.
Absolutely.
And
I think the point is you can't guard Steve Nash. Period.
No.
Steve Nash,
Not
put
in
it-
that system.
and
not
I-
in the pick and
not
roll.
in that
yeah.
system.
And honestly, Paul was my 6th. So it's like to me,
Paul's
Paul is
tough,
Paul's
man.
damn near exchangeable with Stockton. It's just that
I feel like we're
the-
forgetting someone.
My outside of the person I think will be in like with the statistical relevance, the person that'll slowly move up is Russ. Because
he's still playing.
I
He's still
don't.
playing.
I think those of us that watch like love him because he's a dog.
What
he's a
about prime
competitor.
Penny Hardaway? Short, but that prime, that 3 years,
Hey man,
6'8", jump out the gym,
Everybody
pass,
else
shoot,
everybody
no
else
weakness.
everybody
No
else we
weakness.
talked about's played
Multiple
12 years
yeah,
plus.
I know.
Are we
These
all
are
in
all
a-
time.
Are we all in an agreement that LeBron is like? Where do we classify him? If he's not an all-time, if he's not a point guard,
I
whatever.
think he's
Be-
a swing man. I think he's a wing.
To me,
like,
Three.
to me, that's
point forward, whatever.
3.
You wanna, yeah,
Okay.
3. I think too.
I don't want this to be a cop out of all-time positions, but it's just like, man, I don't think you can peg LeBron as a position. And I think he's the first player you could say that about.
Okay.
I think that's fair. Well, JB, you got last word
Especially
today,
in
man.
nowadays game.
Send us out.
Man, in my opinion, this has been this is kind of for the Escape podcast. I think this is really cool because we can bring current events to you guys. We try not to do as much of slanted politics, and then some sports. What I would say is similar to the last time I signed off. Just be critical of what you're seeing. Try to read and try to I don't know. Try to contribute to what we're doing as being an educated population, and try to contribute to being a little bit sharper than the person next to you. And yeah, man,
Read more.
Yeah, please just read more. And then also,
That.
you know, during the reopening of Texas, I really hope we've flattened the curve, man. But just try to be sensible with it. So when you go out, try to still do the social distancing stuff. If you're tired of it, I get it, I understand. But try to do it for a little bit longer so we can get past this and get back to what's normal. And it'd be good to see you guys out after that time. So thanks. Like, subscribe, and share as well. Thank you.
Until next time, remember, this is a Pro Klay Thompson podcast.